The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus spoke to his disciples. There will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on the earth distress among nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves. People will faint from fear and foreboding of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud, with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to take place, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Be on guard so that your hearts are not weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness, and the worries of this life, and that they catch you unexpectedly like a trap. For it will come upon all who live on the face of the whole earth. Be alert at all times, praying that you may have the strength to escape all these things that will take place, and to stand before the Son of Man. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. If I were to say Black Friday, Boxing Day, what word comes to your mind? Shopping, savings, deals, right? What about birthdays, weddings, and wedding anniversaries? Please don't say expensive. I don't want you to get in trouble. Happiness, right? Like lifelong happiness. What about if I were to say parousia, or Jesus is coming in glory? What word comes to your mind? Are you going to be scared, or are you going to be joyful and happy? When Christ returns, would it be like the day of the awards ceremony? Or would it be like the day of your sentencing? It all depends on how you've lived your life. What kind of choices do you have made? I remember years ago, probably around the year 2000, I remember listening to a priest homily. It was very short, but I thought it was very impactful. And this is what he said. He says, Mr. Businessman went to church on Sundays. He never missed Sunday, but he went to hell for what he did on Monday. So it all depends on what we choose to do, how we choose to live our lives. We can either welcome God into our hearts and into our lives, or we can shun God out. Remember what happened on the Christmas day, the original Christmas day? The Holy Family were traveling, right? And Jesus was about to be born. And what did the innkeeper and people say? No room at the inn. They didn't say, I'm sorry, you're not welcomed here. Please leave our premise, or we're going to call the cops. They didn't reject Jesus. They were just busy. They're preoccupied with other things in their lives. But how about us? Do you have room in your hearts and in your lives? Because the whole point is that we want God to be part of not just particular aspects of our life, but the entirety of our life. Every room should be occupied by God. But often when we suffer, when we feel pain, when we go through disappointments in life, as we all do as humans, because none of our lives are perfect, what do? Instead of turning to God, we do things like guilty pleasure, right? Like I know some of my friends tell me, well, Christmas is a terrible time because people give me chocolates all the time, and then I'll sit one day and then binge watch Netflix on my day off, and then I start to eat chocolate, and I realize, what happened to the box of chocolate? I finished them all. Doesn't matter how big it is, right? So binge eating, just wasting time playing the video games, or numbing our minds by binge watching Netflix. We do all these things. Sometimes drinking and smoking and doing all these things that pulls you away from having that family time. So whatever it is, instead of dealing with things effectively, we just avoid it by doing something else. Just self-soothing. But we do know that that really doesn't help. You know what happens when you take medicine? It helps to treat the symptom, right? But what happens? There are side effects. I know that you probably know this very well, that I suffer from gout, and it's not like it's going to hit me, unexpectedly. I know when that happens. It's because of what I consume. If I were to, around this time of the year, I got to be careful, because if I get invited to parties and other families and Christmas dinners and so forth, there's going to be a lot of carbs, which I love. I know it's going to be the culprit. And then they're going to go, Father, do you want to have a drink, just a little bit of wine? I really shouldn't, but yeah, sure, no problem, right? And then what do? I bring my pills with me, just in case I have gout, right? But isn't that sort of like how we live our lives? Like, instead of changing our lives, we say, I want to live my life my way. But if something goes wrong, there's always medication I can rely on, right? Instead of changing our lives, instead of opening our hearts to God, we want to be self-sufficient. I want to continue to do what I do, and I'm going to medicate myself and soothe myself. So during this Advent season, are you and I willing to change? Are you and I willing to open our hearts and open our lives to Christ and welcome Him in?